All right, well, we'll get started while everybody is finding their way in today. Good evening, fellow Huskies. My name is Josh Prue. I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement for the UConn Foundation, and welcome to our virtual twist of our Welcome to the Neighborhood series. As a proud alum myself, I can attest to the power of our alumni network and how exciting it is to be moving to a new city and getting to know your local communities. I have the pleasure tonight of being your host. We're joined by an awesome panel of fellow Huskies living in the New York City area. Joining us also and helping out with all of our production backgrounds is Jody Kaplan, our Senior Director of Alumni Relations. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw those in to the Q&A section. We'll get to those throughout the evening. And Jody will be able to help you with any of those technical challenges or any technical pieces that you might need. For many of you, you may be familiar already with our Welcome to the Neighborhood series. We hold these events usually around the end of August, September timeline. You're probably familiar, if you may have heard, we have reenacted the Nickel Night experience that you might have had on campus at one point in New York City at our local bar, Legends and Jack Dempsey's down on West 33rd. But if not, unfortunately, due to everything going on in the world right now, we've taken a little bit of a twist and pivoted and brought this online to help you understand what it's like to live in the city and what the experiences are right now, pre and post COVID. But to those of you that are newest Huskies to our family, welcome to the alumni community and congrats on finding yourself as part of the greatest network and most important network of friends that you're ever gonna wanna know. I can personally attest, as I mentioned, to the strength of this network and the fun and excitement that can come from working with alums. We get to do that every day as part of my work, and I can tell you right now, you have 5 of the best ones right here in front of you. So definitely take advantage of getting some information out of these guys and ladies, and make sure that you ask those questions that you wanna know. For those of you that are joining us that are more seasoned pups to our Husky family, welcome, and we're thrilled that you're here. Again, same piece to you. If you have any questions, throw those out there. Today, we're excited to bring you a panel of all of our New York City Huskies that are joining us here. People who have done exactly what you're hoping to do or may have already done if you're in the city already. And they can speak to some of the most crucial info that you might need to know about New York. From apartment hunting, what bars are the best that you want to go to and most friendly to Huskies, public transit tricks of the trade. We hope to cover a little bit of a lot tonight, so bear with us and we'll get rolling in just a second. As I mentioned, for a few housekeeping pieces, for those of you that took advantage of our address information update when you signed up, by our deadline, we are going to be mailing out those lanyards to you. They all are going to be done in one big batch at this point, so closer to the end of this month, so just hold tight. As if you signed up for that, you will be getting those. Next, we're going to be doing questions. Obviously, if there are anything that pops up throughout the evening, go ahead and throw those in the Q&A, and then at the end, we'll also give you an opportunity to throw some additional ones in there, and we'll get to as much as we can. Additionally, if you want to talk to fellow Huskies, the chat is open for you to do that, to see who's where and ask questions of each other. You can definitely go ahead and utilize that. And last, we realized that it's almost impossible right now to make new friends given the situation surrounding COVID and the pandemic. But obviously within this environment, we want to provide you an opportunity to meet some fellow Huskies. So immediately following this panel presentation that we're going to jump into in just a second, we are going to be hosting a post-event happy hour. You all would have received an email, multiple emails from me at this point, reminding you about tonight's event. But we have posted it in the chat. We will post it again in the chat. And around 7 o'clock, 7:15, you're gonna get an email from me. It's magic. I'm not even gonna be pushing a button. It'll be coming your way. You'll get all the information, the login details that you need to get into that happy hour. And that'll be your opportunity to be face-to-face with the folks that you see on your screen tonight, ask some questions, and then meet other people. So don't worry, you'll have the info in front of you, and we'll make sure that it gets pinged to you a few times out throughout the evening as well. Now, on to the reason why obviously all of you are here tonight. Again, welcome to our Welcome to the Neighborhood for New York City. And on behalf of the Alumni Relations Office, I want to be the first ones to extend our thanks to our panel for joining us tonight. Moderating this exciting panel is going to be Alyssa Suhr, one of our now lengthier leads volunteers of our New York Alumni Network. Alyssa is currently working as an admissions and program coordinator for UConn School of Business, located at our Stanford campus in the part-time MBA program. She lives, I believe, in Queens and makes her way up to Stanford. Well, I should say, would be making her way up to Stanford every day, but given where we are, you know, she's working from home like everybody else. So, Alyssa, I'll turn this show over to you, and I'll stop talking now.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. So just echoing what Josh said, I just want to say good evening and thank you guys all for joining us. My name is Alyssa Suhr, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's panel. I graduated with my bachelor's degree from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences back in 2012. and I've been working with the New York City Alumni Group for about 4.5 years now. About 6 months ago, as COVID began, I accepted the full-time job offer with UConn, where I am working in admissions as a for the part-time MBA program out of Stanford. So if anyone has questions about starting a new position during a pandemic, I could definitely share my experiences, let you know how it's been. I've been fortunate enough where UConn has been great. I have a background here, obviously, so it's been a pretty easy transition. But I can talk about meeting coworkers via virtual situations and things like that. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out about that. Tonight, we have a stellar panel of local New York City alumni. We're going to provide you with their personal experiences and insight into navigating the greatest city in the world. That's not an opinion, that's an actual fact. We understand we're living in unique times, so we'll be sure to provide you with information about what you can expect from New York City normally and how we've all been living and maneuvering throughout the pandemic. We'll have this panel discussion for about an hour, and then we'll move over to the happy hour that Josh mentioned. If you have any questions during the panel, feel free to use that Q&A feature like Josh also said, and we'll try and get to those questions by the end of the panel. If not, we'll definitely answer them during the happy hour section. So before I pass it over to the panelists to introduce themselves, Josh is going to put a poll into the Zoom. If you guys could all take that, just to kind of get a gauge of who's attending here and kind of what you're looking to get out of this panel, will definitely help us kind of, direct our information. So I'll give you guys a minute to take that.
Hopefully everybody can see that on the screen. I'll give you about 10 more seconds because we got another poll following this. All right. So Alyssa, it looks like we have 73% are currently out of the city and 27 are living in. So decent split
Awesome.
there.
All right. Were there other questions, Josh? Or was that the only one?
Oh, we got one more here. Let me get out of this here. All right. The other question we'll throw up on your screen. Are you class of 2020 or are you a different class? Just so we know who's in the audience tonight. Good chunk of you are not. Interesting. All right. So looking at 87%, throw that on your screen. 87% are not class of 2020 and 13% are. And then Alyssa, we'll throw one more out there for you, the one that the panel is really interested in. Which of the boroughs do you have most interest in learning about? All right, 5 more seconds and we'll close this up. Majority want Manhattan, 1 for the Bronx and 1 for Brooklyn.
No one for Queens? What is this?
Well, nobody for Staten Island either, to be fair.
That's true. So we'll definitely take that into consideration because luckily everyone on this panel actually lives in a very different area in the city. So we all have a lot of different experiences to bring into that. So to get it started, I'm going to ask Briana Crowe to introduce yourself. Just give us your name, your year, what you do for work, things like that.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Briana Crowe. I graduated from UConn School of Business in 2012. I currently am employed by JP Morgan. I'm a vice president there in the private bank, actually doing event planning. And I have an extensive background in events and marketing.
Thanks, Bri. Mark, you're up next.
Here I come. I'm going to be quicker with the mute trigger. Hey guys, Mark Misto. Nice to virtually meet you all. Graduated from UConn 2013 with a finance degree. And I currently work at Nuveen Real Estate as an assistant portfolio manager there.
Thanks, Mark. Jesse?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, folks. My name is Jesse Cohen. I am a 2012 graduate from the School of Engineering from UConn. I primarily was in civil engineering, and I am currently a manager at Deloitte, where I've been for the past 6 to 7 years, and I primarily work in the valuation space.
And Cory.
Hi everyone, I'm Cory Sale. I graduated in 2014 from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I work in PR and marketing, and I work at the Institute of Culinary Education right now.
Awesome, thanks, Cory. So to kind of get us started, I definitely want to touch base with everyone on the panel to talk about how long you've been in the city, what area specifically that you live in, what kind of lured you to this area, what you like about this area. If you guys can all just go briefly through that, and we'll just go in the same order. So Bree, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I currently live in Chelsea in Manhattan. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with Manhattan, but Chelsea is kind of centrally located on the island. We're very close to Penn Station, Times Square, but also downtown. I've been here for 8 years. I think it's 8 years. It might be longer than that at this point. The pandemic count? I don't know. But I've always been in Chelsea. I was on 21st and 8th for about 5 years or so, and I've been almost in Hudson Yards now for about 3 years. And I love it here. Can't see myself leaving.
Mark?
So I live in the East Village with my wife, who's off screen. Can't see her. We moved here in 2016. We've been here 4 years now. We started out down on 6th Street. Now we're all the way up on 14th Street, but still within the same neighborhood, and kind of ended up here because at first I was reverse commuting to and from Stanford quite a bit. So kind of wanted a spot that was easy enough to get to Grand Central without being right next to Grand Central. I think we'll get into reasons why a little bit later. So love it down here. A lot to do, a lot going on. Just a nice kind of neighborhood to be a part of.
Jesse?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am currently located in Hell's Kitchen, but very close to the theater district. So I have one of what used to be a lovely Broadway theater right across the street from me. And I used to live for a couple of years prior to being in Hell's Kitchen. I was down in the financial district. So I spent about 2 years all the way downtown at the tip of Manhattan. And then I've been here in Hell's Kitchen for about the last 4 years. And there are certainly a lot of pros and cons to living all the way downtown the financial district, living here in Hell's Kitchen. But I think kind of similar to Mark's point, where I currently sit, it's very nice, 15, 20-minute walk to Grand Central, which is very easy to just get back to Connecticut.
Awesome. And Cory?
So I've been in the city for about 5 years. The first 3 years I lived in Astoria, which is in Queens, and then I moved down to Brooklyn. I had a lot of friends who live there. There's a lot of green space, the parks. I felt like it was a little more of a relaxed vibe for me, and I love it here.
Awesome. Fun fact, Cory's sister used to live in the apartment right above me. Which was bizarro. She found a random roommate on Craigslist and ended up living right upstairs. One time I saw her walking down the stairs. I was like, what are you doing here? But with that said, I still live in Astoria. I live in a different apartment now. But I've been here for about 6 years, and I just love the neighborhood feel that I have here. It's very kind of low key, but it's a quick trip into the city. I know my mailman. He's a super nice guy. I know my bodega guy. He's also a really nice guy. But again, I'm 2 stops out of Manhattan, so it's not a bad commute if and when I need to go to the city. So kind of branching off about the areas that we live, what do you guys think, for you, what was exactly what lured you there? I know Mark and Jesse mentioned the quick commute to Grand Central, but was there anything else? Is there accessibility to grocery stores, restaurants, food, grocery store, other things like that, bars?
Yeah, so I'll speak to that. Similar to Mark, initially I was commuting into Manhattan. I actually was commuting from Long Island, so I did that for a little over a year, and Chelsea to me just seemed like the greatest location for convenience. Super close to Midtown or downtown if you work in either of those locations, but also very convenient when you want to go out on the weekends. I don't know where people like to go, but I personally am a West Village, East Village type of person when I go out. So it's a very easy cab ride or subway trip. In addition, Chelsea just has so much access to shopping, bars, restaurants. It's a very lively neighborhood, and it's super close to, there's a Trader Joe's that's super close, which I I think once you live in Manhattan, you realize how much you covet places like Trader Joe's where it's affordable groceries. So that's why I picked it.
Yeah, and similarly, yeah, kind of East Village was sort of where people were going out at the time and where they still go out. So I kind of wanted a place where if friends came to visit, if friends from other parts of the city were saying, hey, we're getting dinner, we're getting drinks tonight, they kind of tended towards the villages, East, West, Greenwich. So it made it really convenient, like just for me. And so maybe that's a little selfish, but I really enjoyed that. And just kind of, you know, it's, you go out, you walk the sidewalks and there's bar, restaurant. So just the variety of it all was really exciting at the time moving in. You know, in your mid-20s, there's just so much to do.
Thanks, Mark. We actually just had a question come in through the chat. I don't know if anyone here does know this, but is anyone familiar with the Yonkers area or know anyone that's lived there or anything like that?
I've been up there once. I work in real estate, so, and I mean that in the best way. I work in real estate, so I've kind of been all around, and I went up there once to see a property. What's really cool about it is it's obviously right on the Hudson. It's a really convenient train ride in and out of Manhattan, a lot of train service. And I know for sure there's some pretty new, pretty nice apartment buildings that are either built or are being built right on the water. So I'm certainly no expert, but when I've been by it and through it, it was pretty nice.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't have any personal experience there, unfortunately, but thanks for your input, Mark. Branching off from kind of the neighborhoods that we're talking about, I think one of the big things that kind of worries people about moving to New York is finding a place to live, specifically not even just a neighborhood, but an actual apartment, a building. So I think it'd be good for us to kind of jump into the apartment hunting. I know right now apartment hunting is a little bit different because of COVID-19 than it normally is. So I know Mark's going to be able to speak to that a little bit more. He's got that real estate experience and whatnot. But so to get us started, Mark, can you talk about kind of your experience for finding an apartment?
Yeah, I guess it kind of goes back to the original point of reverse commuting, and it was like real estate, location, find something that made the commute easy. And that's certainly something I'd recommend to anyone who's looking. Just think about how the city is going to work for you relative to where you need to be most often. And then kind of from there it was, you know, early on, we lived in a walk-up, and that was really cool because it's classic, it's old school, it's New York City. You get to know your neighbors a little bit better. And sometimes the units will be a little bit older and there's not as many amenities. So the trade-off there is you might be able to find a well-located unit that's relatively affordable. And after a few years, we sort of moved to a newer construction elevator building. And the trade-off there is there's not nearly as much character as your classic New York City walk-up, but you get amenities, you get package sign-off and delivery, which is really, really helpful. And it's just kind of a different building type. So it's worth, you know, visiting as many units as you possibly can before you pick something. You're not going to bother anyone, especially right now. We renewed our lease in April. We got 3 months of free rent, no rent increase. It's by all means a renter's market right now. So I'd say, you know, go ahead and look, see what you can find.
Bree, I know you recently, you moved apartments a couple of years ago. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? I know it was a little stressful for you.
Yeah, moving is a crazy experience for everyone in New York. I imagine you've all had very similar situations. Everyone handles it a little bit differently. The first time I moved in, I did it fully on my own with my parents and my friends helping me move everything in. It's when you live in a walk-up, just know that's very exhausting and taxing, and come prepared with a lot of friends to help. I then moved into this new apartment a couple years ago and invested in movers, and personally for me, that was the best decision I made. They help you box everything up, they help you move everything. I found it to be very invaluable. in addition to that, this apartment that I currently live in, I actually found on a no-fee renters website. So there's all these different apps that you can use to try and find apartments like Street Easy and Zillow. But I actually found this. It was called No Fee or GoNoFee.com. And it was great. I didn't have to pay a broker's fee, which is generally about 1 month's rent. It was awesome. So if you can find those opportunities when looking for a place, I recommend trying to cut your corners where you can.
Yeah, and I think like Mark was talking about before, it's definitely a renter's market right now. And one of the things that I've seen as well, looking around at apartments, because my lease is up in November, I'm just kind of putting some feelers out there. There's been a lot of places that are not requiring a broker's fee, which normally is just unheard of in New York. So to have that opportunity to save, like what Bree said, almost 1 month's rent is great. And then on top of, they're doing different incentives, like a couple months free of rent, like Mark mentioned he received. So it's definitely a time to be looking if you are considering. And I feel like it's one of the, although it is a stressful time, I think it's one of like the more lax times to find an apartment in New York City, which is very rare. Does anyone else want to chime in about their experience?
Sure, I can add a little bit on this topic. So I think just keeping in mind, it sounds like there's a lot of folks on the call today who currently do not live in New York City. And so my apartment hunting experience, I feel like when I was moving in from Connecticut compared to when I've been moving from apartment to apartment with NYC, I feel like has differed significantly. When I originally was moving to New York City from Connecticut, I just wanted to be in Manhattan, and I knew the different neighborhoods, but I really didn't have a full appreciation for what it means to be back in the Lower East or in Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen, et cetera. And so ultimately, I mean, the big thing is just price. That was like the huge thing, is just getting on Manhattan and being able to just afford the rent. Certainly going from the situation where I was living at home to paying rent, you have to almost become numb to what typically the rent is in New York, although I think, as you mentioned, prices are pretty friendly right now. But once you've had an opportunity to sort of live in the city for a bit, you really do get a much better appreciation for kind of the different vibe that it is to live on the East Side and going out in the Lower East, East Village, Murray Hill, et cetera, versus living on the West Side, where it's certainly a very different experience in Chelsea, in Hell's Kitchen, in Meatpacking District, and et cetera. So I think certainly it's going to be just very different experience when you're first moving into the city versus when you've actually been here a couple of years and you really get a feel for the things that you really do like and are kind of like a must-have versus are the nice-to-have. Since there's no apartment in NYC you're going to have where it's going to have every single thing that you want, you're going to have to make some sacrifices along the way.
Yeah, I know for me, when I moved last time, an issue I had at my old apartment was we had delivery people had no access to getting into like our like lobby. So every package was left outside on the street, and like 9 times out of 10, like packages were stolen. So when I was looking for a new apartment, I was like, I need something where they can at least put it in my lobby. Then it's just kind of, if people in my building are going to take it, that's a little bit different than people walking down the street. So that was one thing that I looked for. That was important to me. But I feel like New York City apartment hunting is kind of, you live and you learn. You go through one apartment and you realize what you don't like. So then you try and look for things that you are missing in that apartment. But like Jesse said, you're not always going to have every single aspect, but that's pretty much, I think that's living anywhere.
Also, just one thing I think is very important that people don't think of, apartment insurance is actually very affordable and is a no-brainer. My friends have a basement apartment that's beautiful. They have this outdoor backyard in the East Village. It's great. But while they were gone for the last 4 or 5 months, pipes bursted in their bathroom and completely destroyed their apartment. And had they not had that renter's insurance, they wouldn't have gotten the money back to help pay for the damage that's been done. So it's very affordable, and I think it's worth it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I know I have it through like Lemonade, and it's like $6 a month. So at that point, it's kind of like, all right, I'll have 1 less coffee a month, and there we go, it's covered. So it's definitely something to consider. Okay, so now kind of moving on from the apartment hunting situation, I think the other aspect that really concerns people about moving to New York City, or that they're a little bit hesitant about or worried about, is the transportation options. It's really not like any other city in the Northeast, it's not even comparable to Boston, just because there's so many different aspects and there's so many different situations with parking, if you have a car, things like that. So I think if we could just go through how we all kind of commute to work, if we have a car, if we don't have a car, what the parking situation is like, I think that'd be helpful. And I'm going to start with Jesse because I know he does have a car.
Tragically, yeah. I mean, never before COVID would I have had a car in New York City. And even as someone who has a car right now, I do not recommend it. It's a nightmare. But obviously, just because of COVID, I do have a car in the city now. Prior to this, I would get around walking, Uber, subway, etc. That's the best way to get around the city by far. I have a car now, obviously, just due to COVID and getting out of the city easily in that sense. So certainly, I mean, there's really two ways to go. There's fighting it out on the streets in terms of being able to park with and have to follow the thousands of signs throughout the city and follow alternate side parking rules. And it's crazier now than ever, since I think there are a lot of people that have brought cars in the city that normally did not. So it's impossible to find a spot on the street. Alternatively, you can do what I eventually caved into doing, which is you pay a second rent now and having your car in a garage. Luckily, though, normally it's probably around $500 or $600 to have your car in a garage in New York City, but because of COVID, it's usually around $350, $400 now. So there is a little bit of a haircut there from a pricing standpoint, but I will be very happy to get rid of that car as soon as it's okay to take the subway and Metro North again.
Thanks, Jesse. And Cory, I know that you do something that's a little bit different than most New Yorkers as well. So can you talk a little bit about biking around the city?
Yeah, so I've actually started to go back into work recently, and I've been biking from Brooklyn into Manhattan every day. It has been really easy. I mean, I wear a helmet, I have my own bike. Google Maps is actually really helpful. There's a bike setting, and if you use Google Maps with a bike setting, it will only direct you down streets that have bike lanes. And so biking in the bike lane, you're separated from the cars. There's like a clear distinction of where the biker should be. So it definitely feels a lot safer. I will say, obviously, like the first time, it can be a little uncomfortable and stressful with lots of pedestrians, lots of cars zooming by. So, you'll get used to it if you do choose to bike, but there are some really beautiful parts of the city to bike around. So I think it's a fun way just to get around and also to explore the city.
Yeah, I've used City Bike, which is a bike share application that's throughout pretty much all of New York City. It's an easy way for you to just grab a bike, ride it, and then dock it at another location. And like Cory said, Google Maps is so helpful with finding bike lanes. So you kind of know where it's kind of more, you feel more comfortable riding. Personally, I usually ride it in Astoria, so I know what roads are busier. I wouldn't ride down one of the main highways. I would prefer to go an extra block to take a back road. So I think that's something that you kind of just learn as you get comfortable. But the helmet is definitely very important. I've seen many people take some tumbles in the city, which is kind of frightening. Bree, you want to talk about your commute to work?
Sure. So I take the subway. It's everyone's different. So for me, I don't do a monthly subway pass. What I do is I subway in the morning and then I walk home from work. And again, that's just because where I live, it's about 2 miles. It's a nice walk home at night, get my calls in to everybody. And then also my other favorite form of transportation is Uber sharing rides. I love making friends with random people in the city.
Have you been taking the subway to work during COVID-19?
So yeah, I've started going back into the office last week, and I have been taking the subway these past 2 weeks. Also, my boyfriend's in Queens, so I take the subway out there as well. I have to say, it's really not bad. The subways are empty. There's definitely rush hour where there are peak times that there are a lot of people, but everyone is respectful for the most part. Everyone has their masks on. Everyone's keeping their distance. When you see people sitting down, you kind of go to the opposite side of the train. And for a while, when I first started taking it, I was completely paranoid and had gloves on and the whole nine. Truly, you don't need to look like a crazy person like I did. As long as you just sanitize and wash your hands as soon as you get off, don't touch your face, keep your mask on. It's really not that bad. And everyone also, even walking, I'm sure you guys can attest to this, everyone has their masks on, even walking down the street. So everyone in New York is very, very careful for the most part.
Awesome. And Mark, I know you have another form of transportation that you use for work.
Yeah, but I gotta talk about all the others first.
Do it.
I'll totally echo what Cory said. Biking's been great. Something I wish I did way sooner. City bike's fantastic. Subway is also awesome. If you live in New York, you'll absolutely complain about it, but it's so quintessentially New York and pretty cool. You can go, one, you can go really far for only $2.75, and two, there's just something great about kind of the energy. Pre-COVID, you hop on during rush hour, after work, you run somewhere on the subway, and generally speaking, it's probably one of the most efficient ways to get around the city. And then, yeah, last but not least, when I moved here, I'd never taken a city bus, fully believed that I never would take a city bus until about a year ago. So that was 3 years into living here. And then my wonderful wife said, why don't we just take the bus? And it was a great idea because it made a lot of sense for how we commute to work. So don't sleep on the buses. You won't know every route, but you'll get to learn a few of the big kind of express routes and what works well for you. And it's the same card, same price as the subway swipe. And sometimes they can be really efficient as well.
Awesome. And would you mind us touching quickly about Metro North, just because I know you've taken that before for work and stuff like that, and kind of where Metro North comes into the city and things like that?
Yeah, Metro North, great for work or leisure. I always used to think coming up from the East Village, going to Stanford, how you're basically inside from the moment you step on the subway in the East Village. You go through Grand Central, take the Metro North to Stanford, and all of a sudden you're out and you're at your office. So generally it's really convenient and relatively affordable. You can go as far as New Haven. You can go all the way up to Poughkeepsie. Where else can you go? You can go north of White Plains. So I've taken it to see friends out in Connecticut. And you can even connect to the Shoreline East, go all the way to like Mystic area. So definitely a good option. I've even used it, speaking of cars, to take it to Connecticut, find a cheaper rental car place than in New York, and then go on like a trip to Vermont or New Hampshire or something like that.
Awesome. And Bree, would you mind briefly touching upon the Long Island Railroad?
Sure. Long Island Railroad, oh man. I guess it's just like the Metro North. It goes all over Long Island and Queens. What else would you like me to say about it?
Just that it's at Penn Station.
Oh, okay, sorry. It's at Penn Station. It's under construction right now, so it's actually kind of challenging to navigate, I'm not gonna lie. Even as someone that is a native to Long Island, I get a little bit turned around when I'm in there. But everyone is very friendly. There's people to help all over the place. And once you get those train lines down, you know exactly where you're going, and you're moving fast. It's a very fast paced, packed part of the city. In addition, at Penn Station, there's also Amtrak. So if you are trying to go anywhere else in the country, I take it for work all the time to Philadelphia, to Boston. You can take it really wherever. So it's great to have that as a resource nearby as well.
Awesome. And the last thing that I want to just mention about transportation that I think a lot of people don't know about is the New York City Ferry. So it's the same price as taking the subway or a bus, but it is separate. You cannot use your Metro card, but it's $2.75. And there's a bunch of different stops along Brooklyn, along Manhattan, Queens. They actually just connected the Astoria line. So it goes from Wall Street to Brooklyn to Long Island City to Roosevelt Island to Astoria, and now it goes up to the Upper East Side on 90th Street. So as opposed to me needing to take the subway down and into Manhattan and then back up to go to the Upper East Side, I can now take a 4-minute ferry ride. So that's pretty cool. You're outside, so it's a really great option for right now if you're not really comfortable being on the subway or on a bus. Again, it connects all different parts of Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan. And they serve beers and cocktails and food. So it's definitely a fun time, even if you're not using it for a normal commute. You can use it on like a Friday evening if you want to have a kind of, a booze cruise ride home. It's something that's fun, and it's $2.75, so you really can't beat it.
Alyssa, I just wanted to mention, I noticed one of the questions was about Hoboken. So while we're on this transportation topic, there is also the PATH train that's available, and that does run to Hoboken and Jersey City. For any of you looking to live near the city but not in New York, Hoboken and Jersey City are also very affordable neighborhoods to live in. They're very lively. They're fairly young. The buildings are, for the most part, very new. I think it's a great option if you're looking into it. And the PATH trains run downtown as far north as 34th Street.
And you can use your Metro card.
Awesome. All right, so kind of branching away from the transportation, which is definitely a big topic. We did have a question come in about giving back to the university as an alumni, but we'll definitely get to that kind of as we move to this next section. So what would you guys, what kind of advice or tips would you give for someone moving to the city on how to meet friends? Right now it's definitely a unique time, but what would you do kind of during normal New York City? What have you kind of been doing now? Just any kind of advice you give in that realm.
So I can speak to that a little bit. So when I first moved to the city, I did some of the recreational sports leagues. There's two, I guess, major leagues that I know of. One is called NYC Social and the other one is called Zog Sports. And I did a volleyball league, I did a kickball league, and I did, those with a few colleagues and then other random people who I've become friends with, after doing various leagues with them. There's also trivia leagues, so more low key or more sports oriented, kind of whichever you're looking for. But I think there's a lot of people who do those leagues who are looking to make friends. So it's definitely a good place to start, I think.
I've actually been in one of those teams where I had a bunch of people who were on my team. I joined with a couple friends, but the rest of the people who were on my team for one of those rec sports for kickball were actually all random people who were just looking to make friends. So it was a really great way for them to kind of have something to do every week. It's every Thursday at the same time. It has the kickball aspect, then it has go to the bar social aspect. So it's a good way for them to kind of branch out of their normal coworker area or roommate area to kind of meet new friends on a pretty, low pressure, low key kind of situation. Anyone else have any other activities that they've participated in or ways to make friends?
Sure. I think just to build off Cory's point, just from a sports standpoint, before COVID, there's an organization at NYC. I think they might operate elsewhere too, but it's called Indoor Hoops. And you'd pay $10-15 and you'd play pickup basketball with 10-15 other people at various high school or elementary school gyms around the city. And so that was just a great way, obviously, just get a quick run in. You get to certainly meet a lot of people. There's certainly a big social aspect to basketball. So that was a nice thing to do before COVID basically relegated me to just walking and biking in the park. But that's certainly something in more normal times. It's a good way to just get a workout in and also has a social aspect to it.
I will also say the alumni network, the UConn Alumni Network does do a lot of events in the city. I'm sure, Alyssa, you're going to touch on that. So in terms of socializing, just putting a plug in there, you should all come and join us. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of cool things around not only UConn sporting events, but community service, just purely social networking opportunities, job opportunities. So it really is a great network. And I've met Jesse out at a bar before a basketball game. You become friends with people, you see these familiar faces, and it's really nice.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's take that and actually run with it. So do you guys want to talk a little bit more about the different events that we do within the Alumni Association here in the city? Mark, you want to take that one?
Yes, I do want to take that one. I can obviously speak to I put into two kind of big categories. One is sort of revolving around UConn athletics, and that might be my favorite. It typically happens at a venue or at a bar and then a venue. Anything from the Red Sox-Yankees game we do to UConn basketball games, UConn hockey game before, game watches where we just meet up somewhere and watch TV. So that I love, especially as a young alum. Sometimes you go into these events and it's kind of like being back at Ted's, or for the old timers out there, Thirsties, when it still existed. You sort of walk in and you kind of know everyone, and it's just a really cool vibe. And then the other big category, and this happens, I believe, at a large kind of alumni scale, and it happens also within smaller schools and colleges where they put on their own events, is sort of more business focused type networking events. And those are also really cool because the university does a good job of holding those events at somewhat unique venues. It could be an office that's really well built out and kind of different. I did one once at the Tenement Museum in the Lower East Side. And you go to so many networking events typically where you're kind of cold meeting people, you're handing out business cards, you don't really know what to talk about. With UConn, it's great because you have that warm intro. so you have something built in to talk about. So those highly recommend, whether it's sports, business, something in the middle. There's a lot, and I'm sure other people have their own examples too.
Yeah, I know Jesse's been a part of the network for a while, so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think just to kind of expand on some of the points that Mark brought up, I mean, just from a networking standpoint, I mean, just in recent years, thinking about some of the venues where we've been able to bring out some local alums who work at some of the biggest companies, not just locally here at NYC, but in the world, whether that be a Google, a Deloitte, an iHeartRadio. And so we're making it, so we're bringing out some UConn alums who are very well connected within these companies and are able to provide a very good overview in terms of what they do with the firm and just talking about the company in general and fielding a number of questions directly from alums in the audience. So I think just from, to build off Mark's point, just in terms of the networking events that are put on, those are fantastic. And certainly I think some of the other types of events that we put on, some of the volunteer work that we've done, Alyssa, just related to the Special Olympics. I'm sure you were just chomping at the bit to add on that. So those have been great events in the past. And so, and I think the most important thing that Mark talked about is that it's really, it's not as stiff of a sort of a networking environment as you may typically find. Just having that UConn connection is huge, and it really does make for a much warmer greeting with folks. I've made tons of friends having been heavily involved with the network over the last 5 or 6 years. And so I couldn't recommend it highly enough to be involved, to come out to the events, whether it be sporting related, volunteer related, more networking related. I think it's just been a fantastic experience over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's kind of like the best thing about the network and what we do here in the city is there's just so many diverse situations and programs that we run. So there's really something for everyone. So if you're not into sports, you don't have to come to the game watches. You know, you can come to the community service. You can meet us at the professional development networking situations. They are all really casual. So you're never going to walk in and feel like you're in the wrong space. So even if you don't like sports and you want to try out a game watch, you're going to find someone to talk to who also doesn't really know anything about sports. There's going to be someone to talk to there. I've been at so many events that range from the game watches to a game at Yankee Stadium or Citi Field, to the professional development things. And I always find someone new who's just kind of, you know, checking it out for the first time. And, you know, we just have a quick conversation and we realize, oh, wow, we had the same class when we were, you know, back as freshmen or something like that. You find these connections, and it's a really great way to make friends in the network as well. You know, outside of all the different activities that you can do in the city, the network itself is also a great way to meet people. And all you have to do is pretty much just say like, hey, you know, when did you graduate? And that's how you can start a conversation from there with a complete stranger. So it definitely gives you that foot in to kind of meeting someone. Even if you're not the most, you know, extrovert or social person, it's a really easy kind of way to start a conversation. Cory, you want to add anything about your experience? Because I know you don't typically do the whole like volunteer situation like we do, but you come to events and things like that. So you kind of, you know, balance your time a little bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a few of the, I watch sports, but I don't have a sports memory, but we've been to some of the basketball games where we've met, I think it was like an NBA game, and we met some of the UConn alums who were on the team after. And then I've also been to just like a bar where I've watched, I think it was the women's basketball team play. I was at the
Just
Google
casually mentioning that she met Kemba Walker after a Knicks game. Just so you guys know. Some alumni that I met.
Yeah. Are the Celtics playing tonight?
They are.
They are.
But yeah, it's been a good time to just see, you know, friends, you know, who I went to school with who live in the city. It's a great way for us to reconnect at these UConn events, but also to meet new people. And I always learn something new. So yeah, they're great.
Awesome. Just because we are winding down with some time here, one thing that I did want to just make sure we covered is I know a lot of people are always worried about the expenses that come in with living in New York City. While we can't really give you a set price ticket because a lot of where you live and kind of what you do on the daily basis will determine that, I think it'd be important for us to kind of just touch base on ways that we can, you know, budget to live in New York City. So I know, Mark, you have a friend that has a good little trick that he does to save some money. So you want to speak to that?
Yeah. I wish I was as disciplined as he is or was. But back in the day, someone I interned with, he would, to justify his gym membership, and it was at an expensive gym, it was Equinox, he wouldn't go out on Friday nights. He would go to the gym on Friday nights. And that was kind of his way to save a bunch of money, because you can easily spend a bunch of money going out Friday, Saturday, whatever in New York. So it's a long way of saying you absolutely can make the city work for you on any budget. You just got to find ways to do it, whether it's going out a little less, living somewhere that's a little bit off the beaten path. There's definitely ways to do it. You just got to find the ways to make it work for you.
Yes, you want to chime in next?
I'm probably the worst person for this question. I mean, COVID has been a huge help just in terms of going out and to eat a lot less, going out to drink a lot less. So I can, thank COVID a lot in that sense. But obviously, I think as a lot of people on the call are probably familiar. I mean, certainly when you're first moving into the city, you're relatively young out of college. I mean, it probably comes with the territory that you're in all likelihood going to have a roommate, and that alone is probably the biggest way you can save on rent alone. Just taking a rent that may be in Manhattan $3,000 or $4,000 and be able to split that with another person. It's just a huge cost savings in that regard. And so, I mean, just speaking to that point, I think as I mentioned off the top, I've lived in Manhattan now for about 6 going on 7 years, and of those 6 or 7 years, I think 6 of those 7 I've had a roommate. So I think that alone has probably just been a huge savings in that regard. And I think it kind of goes also back to the point about just you're going to certainly find in your apartment hunting experience, just whatever neighborhood you're in, that's largely going to dictate on the price more than anything else that you're looking at. So I think that's just really the biggest thing to be cognizant about, just in terms of where your expenses are going to ultimately end up moving to the city.
Yeah, and then I know for me personally, when it comes to kind of saving some money in different areas, through work, I actually am able to get like a pre-tax subway card. So if you're able to get different benefits like that, it's something to take advantage of. So, I do a monthly subway card because I take it all the time. So for me, that $128 a month comes out pre-tax. So I don't know the exact math, but there is some kind of math where you save like X amount of dollars by doing it through that pre-tax system. So, any benefits that you have through work like that is good to look through. At my old job, I also was able to get a discount at New York Sports Club. So I immediately made that my go-to gym, just because I was saving 50% versus other gyms that I would have been able to look at. So I think kind of just being aware of the different benefits that your job offers, because a lot of people aren't aware of those. Ask HR, you might have some other type of program where you have like cheaper rental cars if you're looking to get out of the city or things like that. Pretty much just kind of looking for those different things. The other thing that I did want us to quickly mention before we kind of start wrapping up are different like social media or blogs or apps that kind of speak to different events that are going in the city, or ways you can do like different free things in the city. Does anyone here have a specific, account they follow to kind of find exciting things that are going on in the city, or free things or things like that?
Yeah, so there's a e-newsletter, I think it's called The Skint, and they share free or cheap events and activities every day. They share things for that day and then also for the next day. And then just to Alyssa's point, I think you definitely can spend a lot of money in New York City, obviously, but there are a lot of ways to be thriftier, and like every museum has like a certain time when it's free or reduced price. I think it's just, you kind of have to plan a little bit more and you have to do a little more research, but there are definitely ways to find free events that are like really awesome, like free concerts. Like there is a lot of cool free stuff or stuff to do if you're on a budget, so don't feel super discouraged.
Agreed. Also, I think Instagram is my go-to app. I follow an account called Time Out New York, and they're constantly posting things going on in the city. Alyssa, you tagged me in something, I think like a few weeks ago, of something cool. It's always something different. Sometimes it does come at a cost, those events, but there are some really cool and unique opportunities that you can get involved in New York City through that. Also, Subway Creatures is just hilarious. So if you want a good laugh about people in New York, follow Subway Creatures.
That is a good one. Very entertaining. Sometimes frightening, but mostly entertaining. For me, my specific area, so I live in Astoria in Queens, and there's a blog called We Heart Astoria. So they have a blog, they have an Instagram, they have all different social handles, and they really do a great job of letting me know pretty much anything that's happening in my immediate area, any bars that are opening up, any bars that are closing, any new stores. what's going on in Astoria Park this weekend, all different things. You know, right now they're doing a lot of different closed roads, which pretty much they're closing down certain streets, and then they're opening them up to the public so people can do yoga outside. I know a couple of weeks ago they had an outdoor like book fair. You know, people can ride bikes, kids can play. So like they kind of keep you in the know for things like that. So I'm sure there's other areas in the city that have something similar, and they're just a good way to kind of always kind of know what's happening in your area, so you're up to date, and then you can kind of learn new things. It's just something easy to follow and, you know, good to keep in touch with. Does anyone else have anything to share about in that area?
One more thing I thought of, sorry. Because I live so close to Penn Station, and I'm sure all of you guys would feel the same, I actually stalk StubHub and see what events are happening around me that day so that I can pop into a Yankee game or go to a concert at MSG day of, buy my tickets, and walk in the door for less than face value sometimes. So that's one of the perks of living in one of the greatest cities in the world, is that you have all of these opportunities around you, and you have the flexibility to just pull the trigger day of and get to see some really cool things.
Awesome. And then before we do the lightning round questions, I just want to ask you guys, you know, if you were to give just one simple piece of advice to the people on the call who are thinking about moving to the city, what would it be? So we'll start with Mark, and then we'll go to Jesse, Cory, and Bree.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, to the extent you can, and with Metro North, a lot of us coming from Connecticut and the surrounding area, to the extent you can, get into New York as much as you can before actually moving here. That I think made things way easier for me in terms of understanding the city and figuring out somewhere where I wanted to live.
I think for me, I think in kind of similar, building off of Mark's point, is once you're here, get out and see as many different neighborhoods as you can. I mean, every single neighborhood that you've heard us rattle off, whether it be Astoria, Hell's Kitchen, Financial District, Chelsea, Lower East, Murray Hill, they are all so different, just very different experiences, whether it just be from the bar and restaurant type of experience or just the general outdoor offerings that are available to take advantage of. I mean, really just get out and I know most of the folks talked about, you know, explicit interest in Manhattan, but certainly just getting the chance to walk over the Brooklyn Bridge, checking out Prospect Park in Brooklyn. These are all just other really great opportunities that New York City offers, and they're a subway ride away. They're an easy walk away. It's very easy and accessible to get to all these places that are both in and outside of Manhattan. So really just get out and see it all.
I guess I would say that every neighborhood has its own gem. Like, there is something great about every neighborhood. Every neighborhood is going to have like an awesome pizza place. You're going to find your like go-to bodega. You're going to find like the place that you want to be in your neighborhood. So I would say, yeah, like the prices are, you know, there can be some shell shock when you're starting to look for apartments in New York, but don't be discouraged if you have to kind of adjust the locations where you're looking based off of price, because you're going to find like something to love about where you are anyway. So that's it. Yeah.
I would say embrace it. You're in New York, and embrace being in New York City. Something I keep telling myself is I love it here, but I don't think I'm going to live here the rest of my life. So while I'm here, I might as well go to that show or go to the bar with my friend. I'm exhausted, but just do it, because we have the opportunity to. This city has so much opportunity, and it's a lot of fun, and you can really see and do a whole lot here, and you'll have no regrets. So to Jesse's point, I think familiarize yourself with the city, really get to know the neighborhoods, and you're gonna love it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my biggest piece of advice is really don't be as intimidated as people make it out to be, because there's just so many technology things that you can use to help you. Like there's an app for a map for the subway, or you can just literally type in Google Maps, like I want to go from here to here. How do I do that using a subway? And it tells you exactly which subway lines to use and how long it's going to take you. So like, I know that's always like really like people who don't live in the city are always worried to take the subway when they're here because they're going to get lost, but it's really so easy to maneuver once you get used to it and you use these resources. And there's just so much going on around you that it's just a great place to be. Like Bree said, there's always something, there's always a concert, there's always a sporting event. So it's a really great way to kind of, you know, gain different experiences and kind of branch out of your comfort zones. And the good news is that we can do that within the UConn Alumni Network because we do all the different game watches. We go to the different Yankee games, Knicks games, Brooklyn Nets games. We do the professional development. So there's really so many ways to be involved within the network and then to get involved outside of the network in different sporting groups and things like that. So for closing, what I want to just do real quick is a lightning round of questions. So pretty much I'll do the same order, Mark, Jesse, Cory, Bree, and I want you to answer your your favorite bar, favorite pizza, and favorite bagel. So Mark, you're on the hot seat.
I'm ready. Favorite bar, there's so many, but Cooper's in East Village on 5th Street and 2nd Ave. Favorite pizza, right? Emmy Squared, also in the East Village, 1st Ave. I think also 5th Street. Anyway, and then favorite bagel, Black Seed, also in the East Village, also on 1st Ave. I think those are also the correct answers too.
For favorite bar, got to go Dutch Fred's right here in Hell's Kitchen. That place is incredible. For favorite pizza, I'm not going to betray the state of Connecticut. I'm just going to say it's Pepe's. It's New Haven. I'm not going to say anything in New York. I'm sorry. I love pizza in New York. Don't get me wrong, but I can't disrespect New Haven pizza like that. And favorite bagel, love Brooklyn Bagel. I think that's down on 23rd Street. Brooklyn Bagel is a really good spot.
I'll give you the Brooklyn bests. For favorite bar, there's this cocktail bar I really like called Tucker Alley on Washington in Prospect Heights. And then best pizza and best bagel, luckily, basically on my block, Yield Bagel. It's fantastic. And then also Home Slice for pizza. It's just this small little pizza shop, but it's divine.
So best bar, and I tell every single person that I ever come in contact with about this bar, it's called Cafe Wa. It's a like dungeon underground, live music. It's a total fire trap, but the best time you will ever have if you're into live music. And that's Greenwich Village. Best pizza, I'm going to say it's a tie between Prince Street and Joe's. And favorite bagel is just what Jesse mentioned, Brooklyn. So I'm going to say favorite donut spot, which is Donut Plant in Chelsea on 23rd Street. Their coffee's amazing, and they have some really awesome donuts there too.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So that puts us at our hour mark. I know Josh is going to step in here and give us one more instructions on how to move to the happy hour. But just want to thank everyone on the panel for joining us. You guys were amazing, really great, gave some great insight and perspective into all the different areas of the city and kind of what it entails to be a New Yorker. And I want to thank everyone who joined us who's thinking about maybe coming to the city or just interested in what the city entails. We are all a really great resource for you. We're readily available to you. So if at any point you do want to reach out and connect with any of us, I'm pretty sure we're all on LinkedIn, or you can always just, email Josh and he'll connect you with us one-on-one. But we're definitely a resource for you for any questions that you have. If you weren't comfortable answering them today on the session, definitely contact Josh or find us on LinkedIn and we'll be able to help you out.
Thanks, Alyssa, and thanks to everybody. A couple quick things that I took note of. Number one, Mark, I got to call you out, man. You said the old dogs and thirsties. What does it say when thirsties came after me?
Yeah, that's right. Generations move quickly in stores.
Yeah, okay. Because it was Civic Pub back in the day when I was there.
Never heard of it.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, my point. Secondly, Cory, come on. Kemba? Really? That was if you saw the chat, that was like the most epic downplay ever, and you got called on it.
Sorry, I had to do it.
And then Jesse, I gotta say, man, you named off iHeartMedia, you named off Google, you forgot to name that you also hooked us up with providing 30 Rock and getting us Deloitte, man. You were a big integral part of that. You didn't give yourself enough credit, man. So the folks that are out there know that all these people here put in the time and effort and they use their personal connections to help others in the UConn community, and that's what it's all about. And literally tonight, I think Alyssa said it best, we're all resources for you, so feel free to ping any one of these guys and ladies, and make sure you send me a note if you need anything, if you need some connections. We're happy to make that work for you. And Bree, you're a little passive as well. You're an event planner, but where have you been the last couple of days?
What do you mean?
Well, what's the event you're working?
Oh yeah, I'm working on the US Open.
just
It's
you
been
know, a little bit of a
it's been
thing.
a crazy time.
So as you can see, all of these folks are powerhouses in what they do. So definitely tap into their networks as well. Giving you a quick rundown of how the happy hour piece is going to happen. Obviously in the chat section right now, you have the link there that's there. It should have the password embedded. We provided it as well for you. So go ahead and copy that, drop that in your URL into your browser. If you don't necessarily have access to it when we close, it is in your email. Upon close, if everything worked out the way we programmed it as well, you should get a pop-up that says, take this survey. It's not a survey, it's a redirect that can bring you back into the meeting on the happy hour side. So one way or the other, you should have that. I definitely encourage you to definitely come join us over there, because we will be giving hats away. And see, people didn't wait. I just saw another person leave. We're going to be giving away a couple of UConn Nation hats over here to some folks in our happy hour. So make sure you jump in there and join us and get a chance to meet these guys face to face. So thank you all for joining us to our panel. Thank you all so much for taking the time and sharing your expertise. We appreciate it, and we'll see you on the other side.